What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Imperial Format video, and in this video we're going to be going over a deck that kind of breaks my heart in this format, which is Clown Control. But before we dive into why I find this deck so tragic, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. We're at just over 560 subscribers the last time I checked, and I'd really like to reach 600 by the end of the month, and I'm sure with our current rate of growth, we can make it there. So if you're not already subscribed, please do. And also, if you want to keep up to date on my videos and see when new one comes out, then subscribing is the best way to do that. In addition, if you want to play any of these formats that I'm covering for yourself, we have a Discord server where you can find games in all these obscure formats. So definitely check it out if you're interested. We've also been holding monthly tournaments in these formats, and I don't plan on stopping that anytime soon. So the current tournament is in Yugi Kaiba, and unfortunately, the sign-up date for that is passed. But if you want to be around for the next one, definitely sign up. It should be pretty fun. And lastly, if you enjoyed the video, as always, please do leave a like down below. It really helps out the channel quite a bit. But with all that out of the way, let's dive into Clown Control. Now, Clown Control is a deck that sort of had its ups and downs over the course of these formats. When it was first available to be played in Critter format, I think it was okay, but it didn't really have much to support it. Then in Treasure format, I think it actually got a lot better, and I consider the deck at sort of the top of Tier 2 and maybe the bottom of even Tier 1 in that format, even though it's still quite underexplored. I've never actually lost a treasure match with Clown Control, so I think the deck is super good in that format, and playing it in that format made it one of my favorite decks. However, in Imperial format, I just don't think the deck can cut it, and that really does break my heart, as I really would like to see a deck like this shine, as I think it's really unique. Unfortunately, given the power level of general good stuff decks in Imperial format and the vast amounts of spell and trap removal that most decks are playing, I just don't think it's quite good enough. That being said, it did receive some new tools, and you can potentially play it in the format, so let's go over this. And of course, this is just my build of the deck, and it's a build that I sort of view as a failed build, as it isn't really that good. Other people are trying to experiment with it a bit more and innovate on the deck ideas, but in testing out those deck ideas, none of them have really done what the deck needs to do. And so I still view the deck as kind of not really working in this format, probably trash tier even. Maybe rogue, I guess, but I mean, that's being very, very generous. If people do innovate on it and come up with a better build of the deck that actually works fairly well, then I'll definitely cover this in the future. But as of now, this is sort of a bad version of the deck, although it may be the best version that this deck can have. So diving into the monster count, we of course have the clowns that are the center of the deck, Dream Clown and Crass Clown. Both of these clowns do something to your opponent's monsters when their battle positions are changed. Crass Clown bounces them back to hand when it switches from defense to attack, and Dream Clown destroys them when it switches from attack to defense. Now, the biggest thing that this deck got in Treasure format that made it so good was the existence of floaters like Giant Rat and Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato can fetch out Crass Clown, which, isn't the best, as you can't quite get its effect off right away that way. But Giant Rat, on the other hand, is incredibly powerful when paired with Dream Clown, as, if your opponent attacks into a Giant Rat, you bring out a Dream Clown, you can use that effect immediately next turn, and it's really good. So I do think that combo is very nice. Maybe in the future it will pay to cut the Crass Clowns, as I feel like it might take too much setup to actually pull those off. But we are playing the 2 in the deck, as the 1400 defense does line up well against a lot of attack stats in this format. Not every attack stat, but against a lot of them. So I do like the Crass Clown here. We're also playing 2 Sangan, 1 Witch to search out any of these floaters and also our clowns. I do think that these are sort of mandatory in pretty much every deck, as I think they're really good. And we're also playing 2 flip monsters, Man-Eater Bug and Magician of Faith. These are sort of in here to give the deck other options, and also given that Nobleman of Crossout is a major threat in this format, we're not playing too many of these, just 1 each. Maybe this is a mistake, maybe future builds of the deck will play more of these and focus more on flip control aspects, but I think it's fine with each of these being at 1 copy. They're easily searched out with Sangan and Witch, and frankly, we don't really have much space to play more. We also have a Giant Soldier of Stone to act as a defensive wall, which is pretty nice, and we have one copy of Jinzo, which is arguably the most powerful monster in this format. You know, even if it's not our main goal to get super aggro, I do think that Jinzo is very good at shutting down your opponent's back row and potentially winning you the game. For these spells, we've got Change of Heart, which is, of course, incredibly strong and can also pair extremely well with Jinzo. We've got Confiscation, Delinquent Duo, and Forceful Sentry, all incredibly good hand rips. We've got Dark Hole to clear the board. We've got 2 Fissures to clear our opponent's monsters. This can be great at dealing with Jinzo as well. We've got 1 Monster Reborn. We've got 3 Mystical Space Typhoon. This is our spell and trap removal of choice, as we do have some powerful floodgates that we want to keep on our field, so they don't really play well with heavy. And I do think that just having the reactivity of Mystical Space Typhoon is very nice, and it doesn't get shut down by Jinzo, so that's nice as well. We also are playing a Painful Choice. This card is very big in this format. You can set up your graveyard, potentially send a Jinzo to grave, or just provide you with the card that you need to get out of a particularly bad situation. We've got a Pot of Greed, of course, because the card's insane. 1 Premature Burial to bring back monsters in our graveyard. 1 Raigeki to clear our opponent's monsters. A Snatch Steal, just like with Change of Heart, it can pair very well with Jinzo. And also, unlike Change of Heart, it can actually keep a monster on your side of the field to keep getting in damage. And the deck does kind of lack an aggressive oomph, and Snatch Steal can help provide that. For the traps, we've got a Call of the Haunted to bring back monsters from your graveyard, 3 Gravity Bind. This is sort of the big tool that the deck got in this format, and it can be very strong if you're able to set up a Gravity Bind and set up your clowns. You can just completely deplete your opponent of resources, which is very, very powerful. We also have an Imperial Order to stop major spells. This can be very good against spell and trap removal with like Mystical Space Typhoon or Heavy Storm, but it can also just be good against your opponent's power spells. And lastly, we have a Mirror Force to protect our monsters and stem aggressive pressure. For the side deck, I kind of didn't know exactly what to put in here. I put 3 Karibo in case, you know, it's like a very aggro deck that you're facing. This can be good against Jinzo. We've got a Man-Eater Bug, you know, sort of in a similar vein to deal with aggressive threats. We've got a Mechanical Chaser here paired with 3 Rush Recklessly. You know, maybe this isn't the best ratio, but like you can bring it in if you want more aggressive pressure, and the Rush Recklessly for the same sort of reason. Previous builds of this deck did feature Rush Recklessly, but I just think that there isn't enough deck space for it here, and also, like, with Jinzo in the format, it makes Rush Recklessly a lot worse in the specific context of this deck. Other decks, I think, Rush Recklessly actually becomes better with Jinzo in the format, because if you've got a Mechanical Chaser, it can actually get over Jinzo when you use Rush Recklessly, so in this deck in particular, I think it's a lot worse, but I think it should be experimented with more in other decks. We also have 2 Noblemen of Crossout in case we're against something like Empty Jar. Ceasefire's in here for the same reason. And if we're facing a deck with a lot of back row of their own, we've got 3 Dust Tornado. Now, again, I don't really think this build is the best, but I haven't really seen anything that's convincingly better. I've seen builds that use things like Prohibition, calling some certain spell and trap removal cards to protect their floodgates. I've seen builds playing Messenger of Peace. But, like, the vast amount of just spell and trap removal in this format makes it so that those strategies never quite bear fruit, or at least in the testing that I've done. So, definitely this could get updated in the future, but this is the build I've got now, and hopefully some games will be able to show why I don't really think this is the best. Okay, we've got a game against Aratos, frequent guest on the channel. We're playing Clown Control, unclear what they're playing, but let's dive into the games and find out. We are going to be going second here because they did win the die roll there. And this is an okay hand. It's not the best. Oof, that's a brutal play on our opponent's part. Pot of Greed will draw them 2 more, one of the most strongest openers in the game. They're just going to set 2 and pass, and we draw a Man-Eater Bug, which is pretty nice. We could potentially set Crash Clown here, try and get the sort of bouncing plays going, but we don't have any protection for it, so if they bring out something like a Mechanical Chaser, then that's really bad for us. In addition, if that set is Man-Eater Bug, you know, we don't want to lose our Clown or lose our Giant Soldier of Stone. So I think the play here is actually just to set a Mystic Tomato. If they do pop it with Man-Eater Bug, we've got another one in hand, but if they don't, we can bring out another monster to field, and hopefully that will be enough. So we'll set the Mystic Tomato and just pass back to our opponent. We could have set the Fissure as a bluff, but we don't really want to lose it. And given the high amount of spell and trap removal in this format, their set could very easily be like a Dust Tornado or a Mystical Space Typhoon. So you don't really want to play into that. They're going to flip up a Sangan and attack in. It's just a Mystic Tomato, so they'll take 100 here. Main 2, they're going to set 1, and this makes me wish that we had set the Crash Clown, as this would be great to bounce this back to hand. But to be fair, if we had set the Crash Clown, then they would know about the Crash Clown. They might not actually commit this set to board. So I feel fine with what we did. Dream Clown is very nice to see. But we're going to just switch the Mystic Tomato to attack into their set, just in case like a Man-Eater. We also don't want them to get search off the Sangan just yet. It unfortunately is a Magician of Faith, so they'll be able to get back that Pot of Greed, and this is absolutely brutal. We're going to set a Crash Clown here and pass back to them. You know, if they are busy attacking into the Mystic Tomato, then we'll be able to bounce something with Crash Clown next turn. But frankly, we're in kind of desperate straits. They'll probably have ways to deal with everything we've got with that extra Pot of Greed draw there. And unfortunately, they do. They're going to fire a Raigeki, clearing our board, summoning out Mechanical Chaser, and attacking in for 2850, which is pretty brutal. They're going to pass back to us, and we're in a pretty bad situation. Mystical Space Typhoon isn't terrible, but it's not really that good either. We're going to set this Giant Soldier of Stone and hope that that's enough to prevent them from getting over it. They're going to fire a Mystical Space Typhoon on our Mystical Space Typhoon, so very glad we didn't bluff with the Fisher. And we're going to pass back to them. They've got Change of Heart, and this may just be the end of the game, because that's 2300 plus 1850, so all they need is one more monster. And they have that indeed. So that will just be the end of the game. And I mean, you could argue that there wasn't really much we could do there, as opening basically double pot is incredibly tough. But the clowns were just kind of tough to commit to board because we didn't really have any protection for them. So I think that's a general theme with this deck, is that, you know, when you do draw a clown, they do need a lot of setup. And there's so many ways for your opponent to get rid of your setup. So it's a bit iffier this format than it was in the past, but that isn't necessarily a death knell for the deck. So let's see how it goes game 2. This is one of the most insane openers I've ever drawn. So we're going to fire the Delinquent Duo first and then fire the Forceful to see what they kept. So we're going to snipe a Heavy Storm and a Duo of their own, which is very nice. We're going to fire the Forceful Sentry, see what they've got, and we see that they've got a Mechanical Chaser, a Magician of Faith, and a Premature Burial. I think of the monsters here, I think we shuffled back Mechanical Chaser, probably, because we've got the Imperial Order to prevent spells, and we've also got Man-Eater Bug to set here to pop the Faith. It's a bit iffy. I'm not sure. Yeah, we do send back Mechanical Chaser. I think that's probably for the best. And we can just feel good setting the Man-Eater Bug and then just setting... I mean, we could honestly set everything here because we know they don't have a way to deal with the Imperial Order, so we feel very good about this. But I guess we're keeping the Reborn in hand to try and bait out like a hand removal. I think this is absolutely fine. Dream Clown is a great draw as well. We're going to pop that Magician of Faith with the Man-Eater Bug, summon the Dream Clown, just attack in for 1650. And now I don't think they really have any good recourse here. I mean, if they draw like a Mechanical Chaser, that's obviously bad for us. But I feel pretty good about this. They're just going to set 1 and pass back to us. We're going to fire Mystical Space Typhoon in the end phase. And we hit a Call of the Haunted, which is pretty good. We draw Mystic Tomato, so we can just keep the aggression going. And we'll attack in for a ton of damage here. And it looks like that will all connect. And this is pretty insane. We might just win the game next turn. If they can't deal with like our Dream Clown, then I feel very good about this. And it looks like that draw isn't going to do it. Yeah, they just had a bunch of spells here, none of which would really deal with the issue at hand. So that will be the end of the game. And, you know, Clown Control did win a game there, but I don't think it was on the merits of Clown Control. We had Dream Clown on the field, true, but, I mean, I'm not sure it really did much besides being an aggressive threat there. But that can happen in this format, given the insane power of good stuff. A lot of decks do just play like a bunch of good stuff cards in addition to their jank, so they can win these games off the back of the good stuff. What I want to look out for is games when the Clown Control deck can win off the back of Clown Control. So let's hope we can do that in Game 3. So we did win that second game, so they will be able to go first here. And let's see how it goes. This is a decent opener. We have Sangan and oh, well, Forceful Sentry is going to make it a lot less decent of an opener. They'll be able to shuffle back that Sangan, cutting us off from a bunch of searches. They'll set one pass back to us. We draw Maneater Bug, which is pretty decent. We're going to just set the Mystic Tomato here, set a Mystical Space Typhoon, pass back to them. And they're going to Change of Heart our Mystic Tomato, which is kind of rough. Oh, well, that's even more rough. They're going to tribute it off for a Jinzo, attack in for 3,500. And we don't really have any way to stop this. Man-Eater Bug can deal with the Jinzo, but we're in pretty dire straits. We're going to set that Man-Eater Bug, pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Mechanical Chaser on top of this. Luckily, they attack with the Mechanical Chaser first, so we can just pop the Jinzo. But they will still be able to get in 1,100 with the Witch. They're going to fire a Confiscation on top of this, so this is especially brutal. We'll lose our remaining monster that we can actually play, and we're in a very tough situation. We can't really Fisher their Witch, because then they can just get a monster to kill us. I think we'll just have to set the Sangan here, pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Sangan of their own, attack in to the set with the Mechanical Chaser. And we're going to think a bit about this. We're going to grab a Mystic Tomato. They're going to attack in for 2,100 here. And this is very brutal. We're down to 1,300, and we have 2 Fishers, but we don't necessarily want to search anything with them. I guess maybe we should fire the 2 Fishers anyways, just to decrease the number of monsters on board to make our Mystic Tomato more potent. But, I mean, it's just kind of like damned if we do, damned if we don't. And unfortunately, they have a Mystic Tomato of their own here, so that will just be the end of the game, because they can hit into our Mystic Tomato. If we bring out other Mystic Tomatoes, they can crash and win that war. So that will be the end of the game here. Maybe this game shows that we should be playing like a Morphing Jar number 2 in case we do wind up in these situations where our opponent does have a lot of aggression. Morphing Jar number 2 can be great at dealing with things like that. But, I mean, either way, no matter what you add to the deck, it's not really helping the issue with the clowns. You know, the clowns didn't really get to show off in this game. We did play another game, so maybe they'll get to do a bit better there. So let's dive into that and see how they do. Okay, we've got game 2 here against Aratos. We are playing Clown Control still. They're still playing their good stuff deck here. And let's hope we can actually pull out a game with the Clown Control package. So we're going to be going first here. And this is a decent opener. We open with Forceful Sentry. So we are going to fire that off. Oh, we also forgot to draw for turn, so we do that quickly. But it doesn't change this play. We look at their hand, and we shuffled back a Comfy. They had a Confiscation in hand, but we added that back with Forceful. And the remaining cards are actually pretty strong here. So Sangan and Tomato are, of course, extremely good. Premature Burial can bring back like a Sangan if they want it. And if they do run low on resources, they've got Morphing Jar. We could have potentially taken back a Sangan, but given that they had Comfy and we can't commit more of our hand to field because we've got 5 monsters, I didn't really think it was that good to let them keep that. So we shuffled back the Comfy. Maybe that was a mistake, but that's what we went with. And I'm feeling okay about this. We're going to set a Sangan here, get a search off if they attack into it. And they're just going to set one of their own and pass back to us. Mirror Force is pretty great. That can protect our board a little bit, so we're going to attack into their Tomato there. Unfortunately, they just bring out another Tomato, so main 2, we're just going to set the Mirror Force, pass back to them. Maybe we should have summoned out Dream Clown and attacked in, because then, you know, if they set a monster to play around Mirror Force, then we'd be able to pop it on the next turn. But I think that telegraphs too strongly that we do have a powerful set that can protect the Dream Clown, so I didn't really feel the need to do that. And for all that they know, we are going to win the Mystic Tomato Crashing War, so this deters that a bit. They're just going to attack into our Sangan here. We will just Mirror Force that Tomato because Tomato is just an incredibly strong threat. Maybe we should have waited a turn, summoned out Dream Clown, and then used the Mirror Force, because then we could pop like a set, or I don't know. I think that it's fine just Mirror Forcing the Tomato here. Maybe that was a bit of a risk. I think we're trying to play around Fisher if they drew it, but I'm not sure we necessarily have to. They're going to set 3, pass back to us. We draw Gravity Bind, which is very nice. So we're going to summon Dream Clown, set Gravity Bind, and we feel incredibly good about this. We're going to attack into their set, which we do have a slight read is Morphing Jar, given that they set so many cards. Unfortunately for us, they've got a Mirror Force of their own. So that will clear our entire field here. And we're going to grab a Crass Clown. But if that is indeed a Morphing Jar, this will turn out very poorly for us. So they're going to summon out a Mechanical Chaser, set 1, and here's probably the Morphing Jar, and that is indeed the Morphing Jar. So we'll discard 3 and draw 5 off this Morphing Jar. And to be fair, those are some pretty good ones. We've got a backup Gravity Bind if they manage to get rid of our first one. We've got a Giant Rat to potentially bring out Dream Clown. Reborn is, of course, insanely strong. So we feel very good about this. They're going to Premature Burial and bring back their Sandgame, which makes sense. And they're going to try and get in for a fair amount of damage. We'll take the Sangan attack and the Morphing Jar attack, but on the Morphing Jar attack, we're going to flip up a Gravity Bind to block that off. They're going to fire a Forceful, which is really rough because we like everything in this hand. But they're going to take the Rat, which I do think is the right choice, that can fetch out a Dream Clown. And they're just going to set 1, set another, pass back to us. We draw Mystical Space Typhoon, which isn't the best here. Honestly, this is a pretty rough situation. We could Reborn the Dream Clown, just in case. Like, they did leave us a Gravity Bind, so they might not be able to clear the Gravity Bind we have on field anyways. So that could be a move. But I think that we're just going to Reborn the Sangan to try and get value off of it. That way we can clear the Morphing Jar if they crash into our Sangan with their Sangan. We can bring Dream Clown from deck to hand that way. So I think that makes sense. They're going to fire an Imperial Order, though. We are going to chain Mystical Space Typhoon to clear that. So this Monster Reborn will go through. We're just going to hit over that Morphing Jar, getting it off the field, depleting their life points by 300. And we'll set this other Gravity Bind as a backup here. They're going to fire a Dust Tornado on our set. It is the Gravity Bind. And they're going to fire a Mystical Space Typhoon on our other Gravity Bind. That's really unfortunate. And it's even more unfortunate when they bring out a Mechanical Chaser here. This is really rough. They're going to be able to hit over our Sangan and get in for 2850 more. We will be able to search out a Rat, which is nice. It can bring out Dream Clown next turn, but it doesn't really do anything for us in the present, which is really dangerous because we're only at 2600. Giant Soldier Stone is incredibly strong. We'll just set that, set a Fissure, pass back to them, and hopefully this Giant Soldier Stone will give us the defensive pressure that we need. Unfortunately, they're going to fire a Heavy Storm here that will clear their own Sangan, but they've got a Nobleman of Crossout, so that will just be the end of the game. So that's game 1. Didn't really go that well for us, and I think it really does show one of the flaws of this deck, that like in order to pull off your combos, you really do need the setup. Like, searching Giant Rat was very good because that sets up our Dream Clown combo later on, but if the opponent plays around that and, you know, just bides their time until they draw the things that they need to clear your setup, then it's much worse. And all these spell and trap removal means that you can't just rely on Gravity Bind to protect your Dream Clown, as we had 2 Gravity Binds up there and they were able to clear both of them. So it is quite unfortunate, and it gets even worse after siding when people can side in even more spell and trap removal. So, a bit tough. Luckily, this hand is crazy here. We're firing Pot of Greed first. Maybe we should have fired Painful first, but I think Pot of Greed's fine first. We're going to go for a Delinquent Duo, snipe 2 cards from their hand, and let's see what we hit here. We're going to hit a Dust Tornado and a Duo of their own, which is very nice. We're just going to set a Sangan, pass back to them. We don't really feel the need to fire the Painful choice right now, although we definitely could have done that to get the other hand rips engrave. But I feel like we can save this for a point where we actually know what sort of thing we want to get to hand. It can be very useful in that way later on in the game. So no need to burn it yet. They're going to fire Nobleman of Crossout, which is very unfortunate because we really wanted that Sangan search. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, set 1, pass back to us. We draw Jinzo, which is very nice. We're going to fire a Snatch Steal here, tribute off their Mystic Tomato for the Jinzo, and attack in for 2400. I mean, this should hopefully be a good enough position to win the game. They've got 2 cards left, and we've got 5. So they're just going to pass back to us, and I feel like this really is the end of the game. We're going to summon out Sangan, attack in for 3400. If they don't draw something pretty good here next turn, then it's all over. And they're just going to set 1, pass back to us. We've got the Raigeki, so we can fire that, but it looks like we're going to go for a Painful choice instead. just to try and win that way. They're going to give us a Comfy. So now we can feel free to Raigeki their set. If it's Sangan and they search Karibo, then we can Comfy it out of their hand. But it looks like it isn't, so they're just going to admit defeat there. And we're going to go into siding here. So we did manage to win game 2. But again, it felt like this was won more on the merits of good stuff and not on clown control. I mean, we didn't really play any of the clown control cards there. We just played the good stuff cards. So it felt really bad to kind of win that way. I don't think that speaks to the power of clown control. I think that speaks to the power of good stuff. But we'll see if we can actually win a game with clown control in game 3. Let's see if we can wrap up the match here. We're going to go second here, unfortunately, and they're going to have the option to go first. They're going to fire Pot of Greed. Very nice. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. And this is honestly probably the best chance we have to actually do stuff with clown control so far. They didn't open too broken. We've got Nobleman of Crossout to deal with their set. And so we're feeling pretty good about this. We're going to bring out a Witch, fire the Nobleman of Crossout, hit that Sangan. We feel very good about that. We're going to attack in for 1100, set this Mystical Space Typhoon, pass back to them. They're going to Mystical Space Typhoon our Mystical Space Typhoon, so we'll chain it, targeting their set. It's called the Haunted. Makes me feel very good that we Nobleman of Crossouted that Sangan there. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We don't really have a way to deal with that now, but we are just going to attack in with the Witch, and that's just a Mystic Tomato. We're going to set a Sangan here, pass back to them. And we could potentially have fissured that Mystic Tomato to play around like Jinzo, but if they summon out Jinzo, we can just fissure that instead. So we feel fine about this. They're going to set a card, set another card, and switch the tomato to attack, pass back to us. That's a very interesting play. We're going to fire a Fissure here, flip up a Sangan, and just attack in here. Maybe we should have had the read that was Morphing Jar because they did set a card, but I mean, I'm not really sure how we would have made that read. So they are going to discard their hand, which has some pretty good ones, and we'll discard ours. And we both draw 5, which I am honestly fine with because we get some good ones. Main 2, we're going to set a Sangan, set a Imperial Order here, pass back to them. If they do have like Raigeki, we've got the IO for it. If they've got Mystical Space Typhoon for the IO, we get at least 3 searches, so we're not too torn up about that. They're going to fire a Dark Hole. We're going to fire Imperial Order, and it looks like that will go through. So they're going to set 2, pass back to us. And we're going to think about whether we want to keep the IO up here now that we've got Raigeki. We might just want to fire the Raigeki, but it looks like we're going to save it and just hope that Mechanical Chaser is enough here. We're going to summon the Mechanical Chaser, attack in. They do have Mirror Force, quite unfortunate, but we will get 3 searches off of this. So we're going to search out a Jinzo, a Rat, and a Maneater Bug. And that is honestly, we're pretty fine with that trade. We're going to pass back to them. They're going to flip up a Witch, summon out a Mystic Tomato, and attack in for 2,500. That's unfortunate. We will drop down pretty low. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Mystical Space Typhoon. And again, we're going to think about whether we want to keep this Imperial Order up. We could let it drop, summon out like Giant Rat, and then fire Raigeki. That might be the way to go. And it does indeed look like that's what we're going to do. We're summoning out the Giant Rat here. We'll fire this Raigeki, and that will clear their board. So they will get a search here of Mechanical Chaser. We will attack in directly for 1,400. That will go through, and we'll set 2, pass back to them. If they try attacking into our Giant Rat with Mechanical Chaser, we can always just rush recklessly, or we could just let that attack go through, get out a Dream Clown, switch its defense next turn, and tribute off for Jinzo. So we're feeling very good here. They are going to fire Delinquent Duo, which is a bit unfortunate for us, but I think honestly, just given what we've got on board, we're feeling okay. So they're going to be able to snipe this Mystic Tomato, and we'll also send the Maneater Bug here, because we can actually bring out Jinzo fairly easily, we figure, as long as they don't have a way to clear the Rat. They've got Heavy Storm here, and we're going to think about this, and we are indeed going to just let that go through. Because if we chain the Rush Recklessly, and they've got like a Snatch Steal, if they've got like Snatch Steal and then Reborn to bring back Jinzo, then that is almost the end of the game. It's not quite the end of the game, but we don't want to let them get in 700 more damage. And also, we feel fine, again, if they attack into Giant Rat, we can bring out Dream Clown. So we feel fine here. Unfortunately, they do have Snatch Steal and Reborn, and so that'll just be the end of the game anyways. Well, sometimes it goes like that in this format, and honestly, that's the main reason why I think that this deck really can't compete. There's just so many more powerful good stuff cards in this format that you can't really be playing a deck that requires a ton of setup to actually pull off its plays. It just gets majorly outclassed. And you saw that here. We had a very good setup, arguably one of the best setups that the deck can have, and our opponent was just able to easily dismantle that, playing very powerful limited spells. And you could argue like, oh, well, they're limited spells, so it's just, us getting sacked. But like, there are so many limited spells in this format that it really isn't a matter of getting sacked. It's a matter of which limited spells is your opponent going to draw. So I really don't think we got too sacked here. I think that this is just standard for games in this format, and probably going to be the standard for games in formats going forward. We don't get an actual banned list for quite some time, and a lot of the formats intervening between now and that ban list are going to be a bit like this, where a lot of jank decks just can't compete because there is just such a powerful core of good cards. But I do know that this deck has its major defenders, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below about this. Do you think that I'm being overly harsh on this deck and that these games were just sort of outliers? Or do you think that with a potential better build, I could potentially improve this deck quite a lot and fix the deck's central problems? Let me know down in the comments below. As of now, I'm not really planning on making another clown control video for this format or tinkering with the deck myself that much more, because I can't really think of a way to solve the deck's central issues here. But I will be happy to be proven wrong if someone can come up with a good list. So I encourage you all to try it out. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.